Good morning, everybody. Hello, welcome along. I've gone for the green-grey paper today. Now, I'll tell you why I've gone for the green-grey. It was either that or the blue-grey or the denim. This is the terre vert. When I looked, there's more green space than there is blue space. So that's why I've gone for that. And I've tweaked it a little bit. Only slightly. What I've tweaked is this bit because I actually want this to be a path. It isn't in real life. It's two lots of fencing. And I thought, you know what? I don't like that. So I've moved this side to the left. So none of the tops are overlapping this one. So it gives us a nice winding path round towards the castle, which I've done extremely shabbily with my drawing, and I hope my painting will actually make it look better, but never mind. Quite a few colours today. I'm doing without burnt sienna because there isn't really any brown in the picture. Psychic. Oh, sorry.
So I've had a day of telepathy so far.
I give 15 minutes ish to sketch. I've just very loosely blocked in the shapes of the castle. What's tricky about this is that there's no determinable light source, so that's what makes it a little bit trickier. But if you're using blue-grey card, it doesn't really matter. Or grey card, grey, blue-grey, or green-grey would work very well for any landscape. But as I said, I just saw that I had a majority of green in there, so I thought let's go green. It just means I'm gonna have to work harder for the sky and the castle. Whereas if you're using a blue, grey, or a grey, the sky and the castle will be an easier job, but you will have to cover up more of the green. Whereas this week, a bit like last week's scene, we can fudge it a little bit because we've got green there. So if we don't fully cover the green, it doesn't matter. So I'll give you until about 1:45. And I'll talk you through the colours. Black and white as usual. Both blues, cerulean and ultramarine. Both yellows, cad yellow and lemon. Cad red because we've got the poppies and purples to go in. Dull purples and yeah, black. Black might be useful. as we found out last week. So a few more minutes, I think, because just get the castle shapes done well. Or done, because you've got the gatehouse there. Let me just sketch that, because there is a wall there, kind of. Floor. Missed that tower off. Oh, Wally, there we go. Missed that tower off. I'll put that tower in. Have you ever been to Bamburgh Castle? I haven't. Jackie, did you live near it?
Yes, I once went on a walk to Bamburgh Castle and we had like a...
Was it coastal or back way? Because this is the opposite way, isn't it? This view.
I think we would have walked up the coast, yeah.
Because this is a view I haven't really seen of it, because it's the view from the back.
And we had, and also when I was in Browning or something, we did some events and things there, so yeah.
How exciting. Just adding a few more. So I definitely want us to lead in through this bit and then go around. So I'll change the way we walk across. A couple more minutes and then we'll start painting. So that's black and white, ultramarine, cerulean, lemon yellow, cadmium yellow and cadmium red. We can make any browns that we might need. It just seems silly to have a whole squeeze of burnt sienna when we probably won't be using it at all. And gouache is more expensive, so we don't want to waste it. I have thought I ought to get myself an empty palette for my gouache, Jackie, so to save me having a tile all the time. I don't know, I think my Jello palette might be too big. Even the fold up one's going to be too big.
Look at the catalogues and see what we can find.
I'll see what we can find for me to squeeze my gouache in, because then, I mean, part of me, I like squeezing out what we need, the colours that we need, because it's not going to confuse you that much. However, it does get wasted this way, because I'll keep the tile somewhere to dry for a bit and then I forget I've got it and then the paint flakes off and then I've lost the paint anyway. So if I had a little palette, it wouldn't need to be any bigger than my watercolour palette. Maybe I'm going to do that, Jackie, because we've got some spare tins, haven't we? And pans. I could do my own water, because this is my watercolour palette that I use, and some of my colours are running out. But I could do the same for gouache. That would be a very good idea. I just have to remember which is which. And I could just squeeze them in, and then I'm happy. Job's a good one. Let's move my mouse out of the way. We'll have to make some more watercolour paint up, I think. We've got no tins, Jackie. Made up. I sold the last one on Saturday. So that's good. Okay, just run my finger up my glasses and smeared something across. I can't see through it. It's better. So I'll be using a flat brush. Wet it, bit of cerulean, bit of ultramarine, bit of white. Now this will be for the sky only. So both blues and a bit of white. And I'm going to scumble and twist across the paper, similar to the sky that we looked at last week. And don't forget, watercolour dries more matte and a slightly darker tone. So I often use flat brushes because it helps me move things about a little bit more easily. There's a lot of cloud in the sky. Like that, so I'll let that dry for a sec. I will clean my brush because it's going to end up being blue. Cerulean's quite a punchy colour. But I do want a hint of blue in that cloud, even with the white, and I might add just a little touch of black, and then that can be twisted because we want it to be quite fluffy. So basically I'll roll the flat brush between finger and thumb. To try and build up layers. As I said, I'm going to have to work a little bit harder with my sky because I'm on green, but I won't have to use as much when I work on my green grassy bits. But having a few little tones of green aren't going to be a huge issue, but I will be using more paint than I normally would. Might be too much black. I prefer using a flat brush to do clouds rather than a round brush, for the simple fact that a round brush will give you lots of V shapes across the page, whereas a flat brush on its corner gives you more curly edges and fluffy clouds. I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but it's true. A bit more paint.
He's teaching at the minute.
Alright, So we'll go a little bit more with more white. I'm just going to build up by adding a slightly thicker layering of white, and it doesn't matter if it breaks and gives you a bit of a dry brush look. You can use a smaller brush as well if you want to change it somewhat, but yeah, you can keep it quite loose and free and natural. Got a few areas of white which will be neater. And when I say neat, I mean straight from the tube, kind of, with only a very small amount of moisture on my brush. Because any excess moisture is fine, but it does make the clouds less opaque. I think that's quite a nice cloud. By doing it in layers like this, you've got lighter areas, and as it sort of sinks in, you can it goes slightly darker, duller, more matte, and you can come in, swoop in with a slightly neater tone. And if you've noticed, I'm making the clouds towards the horizon line a little bit flatter and smaller, and what that does is it makes the sky feel like an expanse. So if we've got bigger clouds at the top and more narrow, shorter clouds on the side, it just gives a much broader depth to the scene. Like so. So we'll let that dry. we'll have to put some castle colour on. I'm going to move all these brushes out of the way, I think, because they're going to get in my way a little bit. I haven't got a separate brush pot for my gouache brushes. I need to get myself more organised because I do a lot of gouache. Oh, I'm gonna. Right, so I think I'll let you finish that sky a little bit. But it's amazing using the layers. And having either the blue grey or the grey underneath, it will give you more tone than you actually have put in. It does the work for you. Obviously, working in watercolours to do a cloud like this, we'd have to be adding more grey tones and everything because we're working on a white surface. So the advantage of gouache working on a coloured surface is that that colour will really help build some depth. So I'm going to use a little, this is my 1/8 inch flat, really useful brush. Ultramarine, cadmium red and white, because I want a purple. If you've got a purple, sometimes I use dioxazine purple and add a bit of yellow to it in gouache. I recently did a painting of 2 chimpanzees, and let me add a little bit of cad yellow in there. That just dulls that purple down a little bit. And what the I found I had to use a lot more purple in their faces than I ever thought. So I've got this purple here. I'm going to need more white, I think, today. I'm going for a mid-tone that I can light and darken. So it's very difficult to make out on here. Because it will go darker. And I'm working around so I can still actually see my pencil lines. Because sometimes it might need a bit of an extra outline around it or something. I think this is kind of stone embankment, so if I do a little bit in the purple like that, so it's hard for me to it'd be hard for you to see, so let me zoom in on the castle. There you go. So there's quite a few gaps missing, and that will be filled in with some darker tones or lighter tones. I'll switch to a thin 0 brush or something. Bit more yellow and a little bit of white for highlights. So I've mixed a much paler tone with a bit more yellow and white in with my purple. You can just see it down there, and this will enable me to pick out lighter tones on turrets and it's like an old charabang trip downstairs. So I'm outlining, and then I'm gonna hopefully spread and blend some of this in a little bit more, but also do some slightly darker tones as well. And when you want to blend, you just use a clean damp brush. And I might add, I've still got some of the darker purple, so if I add a bit of black in there, do a few shorter strokes. So this is still purple, but with a tiny bit of black in it. Just add in lights and darks. Try and bring things forward, push things back. Maybe I'll add some windows and what have you, but that will be in a darker tone, I think. We don't want too much detail because it is really far away. There is the arched doorway of the gatehouse there, and there are lots of windows. Be good to put all of them in where possible. Very hard to see them. You can always use a gel pen if you, or just a black liner pen if you want to outline a little bit more and try and get a little bit more information from this castle. But as I say, if you do too much, you do have to be aware that it is far, far away. So it does need less information than you possibly would normally give, just because of the depth of the scene. I think that's okay for far away. And then we'll have some greens. There's a slightly dark green in front, which will be a bit of blue and lemon yellow, but slightly more blue. You could add a little bit of purple in there as well. And that's gonna go along here. And actually a bit of purple there as well as a base for the castle. I suppose it needs to sit on something, doesn't it? Then if I add a bit more lemon, that'll dull down a little bit as well, but it just sets the scene. I don't want to spend too long on the castle. However, we need to spend long enough, don't we, to make it look like a castle. I mean, there are sludgy greens. If you want to add a sludgy green, you can mix a bit of black and lemon yellow together, and that will give you a really interesting olive green. Just helps to bring things forward a little bit, I guess. Like that. So it is quite a way away. Let me just move out slightly with the camera, like that, so we can get a little bit more information in, ready for other areas. So I'll be doing the darker green area here next. I'm trying to find my little stabby brush, because talking about the dark greens, we do need lemon yellow. Let's move my tile so you can see the colour I'm mixing, because it would help, wouldn't it? Lemon yellow, black, a bit of ultramarine, so quite a dark colour. Don't want too much water because my brush, it looks almost black on the screen, I know. Right, so that is going to be stippled. you could almost block it, this one in, and then stipple around or on top of it with your lighter tones. But I think if we've got a stipple technique going, that will work really nicely. Can still roughly see those lines, so that's good. Do need to clean my brush after that though. Dry it off a little bit more. If we can get about halfway down or get the majority of the stipply bits done before coffee break, that would be really good, wouldn't it? Weird, isn't it? Because we've never had that happen before.
Well, it could be a local thing. They could all be off with COVID.
Well, yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Right.
If not, we'll have to resend. But I mean, I think we need to leave it maybe. But it's a shame because if it's all Easter stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's why he was getting a bit concerned. Right, let's go with more lemon yellow and a little bit of ultramarine. So we want a fairly bright green, but not over. It's still with a stabby brush. And I might mix a little bit of the dark green within that, just so it's not too in your face. And then I'm stabbing. But when you do this, what you don't want to do is just keep your brush exactly the same angle and distance and pressure, because it just looks like you're printed. Going with a bit more lemon. It's supposed to be very lovely weather today, but it's a little bit breezy. See, that just gives us a bit of extra layering. And we can always add some more darks back in if we need to. I don't want it neat black because that will be too harsh. There is a fine line between how much water, how much paint makes it worthwhile. I think that looks alright though. Yeah, that looks alright. My paper's curling because it's not taped down, but that's all right. And then we'll work on the more there are two extra there are two things we can work on. I'm going to move this further down so you can almost see the bottom of the paper, which is only there. Maybe we ought to put the path bit in first, even because it's grass, but everything else sort of like grows over the top of it, so that will need to go in. So you have to think about layers when you're working. What's the lowest down bit, what will go in front, what goes behind, and that really does help. So I need to mix sort of a browny creamy biscuit colour. So if I mix card yellow and a bit of black, we're already there, to be honest. And I'm just going to pop this in. I need to mix more of this. Cadmium yellow and a bit of black. And I am going to go round. Oh, goodness me, what a clatter. This is layer one. I will stipple some grassy stuff on this. But all of the fence posts are on the left side, are in front of this, so it does need to be popped in. Move that up so you can see. I forgot there is that post there. It's gone very pale. Just an underpainting. I'll zoom out now, I think I can do. So you can see everything where it needs to be. And I might go with, you know, that lemon yellow and black mix. I might add that on this side. It's good to try and get underpainting blocked in where possible. So this is lemon yellow and black, but there's also some of the biscuity colour that we just made from the cadmium yellow in there, because we can cover it up and then it helps with the stippling, a bit like what we were doing last week with the daisies and the grass. Not too much water, because it will, depending on the card that you're using, it will affect it. A bit darker towards the very foreground, so a little bit more black. And I'm going to do that. I know there's a post on that side. I'm going to do this a little bit more on this band here. To remember to pop in a post. You can see how it's helping create the shape of the path. You don't have to be too neat with this, because we are just blocking in. It's always good to be slightly darker at the very front. And that gives us more depth. The before coffee break, I know we've got 5 minutes. I just want to put in a colour there for that hill, which I might make more of a, it is undercolour, it's very similar to this path, but I don't want it to be the same. So I'll have a think about that for a second while this bit dries. So it's going to be very patchy for now, because we know the second half always goes a lot faster. But we need the fiddly time for the foreground. So if I use the cad yellow and black mix with a little bit of white in it, a bit more yellow in there and a bit more white, that might be a good mid-green. We don't want it too dark and too warm. If it's too warm, then it will jump forward, and we don't want that. This is the foreground warm bit. Right, while that's drying, I'm going to go and make a drink for Jackie and myself, and then we can do some stippling. Then we've got the poppies and the fence post and things to do, so we're back in a couple of minutes.
tell you how bloody many
Just a
letters from the bank sent over. Just a standard one.
We don't like letters from the bank. Right. Let me just bend my paper because it's cockled and muscled. Alive, alive. So we want some creamy yellow paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bit more lemon yellow to this colour that we started mixing. And a bit of white. Because we want more cooler colours in the middle. I'm definitely going to need to squeeze out more white today. And like little clusters and tufts. It's quite wet, my brush, which is a little bit annoying. Gentle upward strokes. Now this should dull down a little, and I might add a bit more white to that, but while that's drying, if I add a bit more lemon I can try and get along this side, but it has got an element of this lighter tone of tufty stuff in it on this side of the path. Let me squeeze out a bit more white. You smell nice today.
I
You
showered.
just waft past. Ah, there you go. You just smell clean. That's nice. Thank you for having a wash to come to work. A bit more white to do some tufts. Just that reminder that the second half always flies by, so we don't want to spend too long on anything. So I'm going to work on the pathway a little bit more. I'll add a bit more lemon into this mix. And this is much shorter grass, so I'm just going to do little short strokes. And then the wild, untrampled on grass can come on the sides. Again, when you do these kind of stipply things, and you're using one brush. Twist the brush a little bit so you've got different angles. It's not always the same one, otherwise it'll just look like potato printing. And you want enough moisture on your brush, but not too much. And that, sadly, is something that I cannot teach because it will depend on you. And it's okay if you go over your posts and things, because you don't want it to look like you're going up to a post. You want it to feel like it's all integral and there's grass growing up in front of posts and behind the posts, not where you've just got a solid line like a paint by numbers, which we would never advocate, because you can just get a paint by numbers if that's the case. Add a little bit more cad yellow towards the foreground, warmer colours. And texture. Because don't forget, we've changed the angle of the pathway, so this should be a little bit more interesting for people. We'll do brighter greens on either side. Nice cup of tea. Sales calls. Ah, yes. I had 3 in short succession on Friday. I think I had 3 within the space of an hour. I'm letting this dry because I'm going to be leaning across it in a minute, so if it's too dry, if it's too wet, I'm going to get covered. Not that that doesn't stop me anyway, but so we want more of a lemon yellow ultramarine mix. I'm going to bring this over here, I think. I don't want to make my brush too soggy. Sounds like they're digging the road up somewhere. Did you pass any roadworks on your way in? Got the jackhammers out, aren't they? Right, so this is going to be more long, unkempt grass, so it's going to look quite bright, but don't forget it will go more settled down and be a little bit more matte. I'm going behind where these bushes are going to go, because I think we ought to put them in. See, having not taping my paper down has it's got its good points and its bad points. And the good point is that it gives me the chance to be able to move things around a little bit more. I can twist my paper and, you know, that kind of thing. But bad side is I'm bouncing a lot on buckled paper because it's not doing anything. We don't want it too light either, because if we make this too light, then we're going to really struggle to do our poppies and stems and leaves and things, really make them stand out. So it's all about the layers, isn't it? Yes, it is. Why, thank you. That's okay. I don't know if it's picking up on the mic, all the sounds. Jackhammer and the stuff. Oh, we're getting there. We're getting something that's looking a bit like a landscape. I don't know what bushes they are, because they're very lemon yellow things on. So it's not. Maybe it's heather, but they look huge. Because it's not gorse. The wrong colour for gorse. And then the dark parts of the bushes, I'm going to still stipple, and I'm going to go with back to that sort of blacky tone, not full black. Bit of lemon in there, and I'm going to stipple. Maybe I want to go a bit darker. It's looking alright, isn't it?
It's not looking too bad now.
I try.
Keep practicing.
It's so noisy out there. brush downwards a little bit, almost like we would in watercolour. See, I can't stipple the flowers and the green on this. I can stipple the green on, I can't stipple the flowers on because it's going to make it too much, really. So that needs to dry. We'll stipple the green on, which is a lighter green, a lemony green. And then it'll be lemon yellow and white flowers. Then we'll do the posts. Then we'll do the longer grasses ready for the poppies. Because it is only poppies. Right, so I want a brighter green, so that's more lemon. You can almost go with neat yellow. Try and create a few different shapes. Because I want at least 20 minutes for the poppies, you see. Leave some darker bits, and then that gives us a bit of extra depth and layering, like that. Then it's the dotty pointy flowers of the bush. So if we can do the dotty pointy flowers and the posts by 12, that would be really good, and then that gives us half an hour to fiddle with the foreground. Obviously, if you're watching on ArtStream, you have the ability to pause me. The amount of people that would have liked to have done that in my life, including somebody I work with. Or I think she just much prefer to mute me. She's been very quiet, if you notice. So this is lemon yellow and white, and I'm doing a couple of dots and then some side by side dots. again, we've got the issue that you don't want it too watery because you lose your opacity. Lemon yellow and white makes a nice creamy yellow. Lots of dots. So you can't really do this with any other means. It's having enough water for it to work, but enough paint to keep it opaque. I spend too long on this because I want them here, but I want it to feel random, and I'm feeling I'm not being random because I'm taking my time, and that's the trouble. The longer you take, the less random it will actually be, and then you'll look and you'll go, oh, it's all exactly the same. That'll do. That will do, donkey, that will do. Right, so we're ignoring all of the grass for the next bit, and I'll be using my 1/8 flat to create a sort of similar colour to the castle, which was ultramarine cadmium red and a bit of cad yellow and white. So making a purple and adding the yellow gives us more of a, too much yellow will make a brown colour, but that's actually okay for this because they're wooden posts. But when you make your purple, make it more to the red side. Oh, this is starting to look almost identical to my green that I've got on here. Because what I find really interesting is the green changes colour depending on its association or a relationship to its environment. mix some more of this up, or can I just plop that on, dilute it a little bit? And then we can add some lighter parts and darker parts with white. I missed a bit of green down here. I'll let that dry. Then I'll be adding more white to that colour for highlights on the top and the left hand side. We could add a little bit of shadow across there, but I don't know if we'll have time, because it isn't that sunny. But the shadow from the posts going across the path would be quite nice. So I'll have a little think about that in a minute. So now if I go with more white, it will go more of a creamy grey colour. Can do the tops of these posts. Slightly more visible the closer we get. And you can do dry brush with gouache. You just don't want a wet, your brush has to be even drier than a watercolour dry brush. So if I add a bit of black in there now, an ultramarine, darker side and maybe a few cracks. So that's the fence posts in. I'm not putting the wires on though, and if I did I might do it with gel pen afterwards. So it's going to be, or maybe I'm going to use a rigger brush or a liner brush for the stems and stalks and things, because we want some really nice overgrown tones. I'm probably going to use black and yellow with a little bit of ultramarine. A bit of cerulean maybe, just to punch it up a little to start with. So I can really do some long, weedy, overgrown bits, and then I'll do some lighter tones as well. But this just helps make a bit of a underpainting for the lighter green, I think, because otherwise it can look a bit too unrealistic. I mean, I know this is more illustrative. It's easy for me to say. But you do want a bit of something where you can feel you can relate to it a little bit more, but especially where it comes over the pathway a little bit. Some darker, maybe they're poppy buds, not seed heads I suppose, because the poppies haven't gone into seed yet. As you can see from the photograph, they're all out. Or they might be just leaves and little bits, but we're going to do all of this again, but in lighter, much lighter tone. It's just really handy to have the darker bits within. We know that this last half an hour or so, or less than, last 20 minutes is going to fly by, so let that dry for a minute. red will really help bring this forward, but we do need some lighter greens. Hopefully you can see how we've created that path as a lead in towards the castle view. So I want a lot of lemon yellow. Still going to use my rigger. A bit of white. A little bit of ultramarine. We don't want it to be a really vibrant green in that sense, but it does help, because a lot of this may well just disappear. Or zigzag dabby leaves, which you can just use your liner brush for. And it's okay if you keep running out of paint, because you're just going to make lots of different versions of lemon yellow and ultramarine tones of green. We want it to feel quite overgrown, don't we? So leaves and stems and yesterday we were doing a wildflower meadow, but we had poppies, cornflowers and oxeye daisies in there, which was really nice, but having this just for poppies is going to be something extra special, I think. Can do slightly bluer greens. So lots of lighter tones. Just building up the foreground, really. I did say about a bit of shadow across from the pastes. I will do a little bit, I think, but I probably won't do a huge amount because the poppies are going to be everywhere, so they might cover some of it up. That's the hope. So we've got about 15 minutes to go. If I do make, I've got a sludgy colour here. Just add a little something, I suppose. And then I'll be getting out, breaking out the cadmium red. I'm going to get the hairdryer on this. Pen my card back into shape. Might do a tiny bit of red right in the background as well, I don't know. A nice blob. I might put a bit of cad yellow in with the cad red just to brighten it up. And then we can create so there can be more blobs. This is the 1/8 inch flat brush. Just giving it a bit of a wiggle, to be honest, on my brush. Bigger at the front, dottier at the back. They're not all going to be facing the same way, so don't fall into that trap. Some might be open, some might be closed. Lean on your paint. Goodness me. Maybe something like that. And then if I do a little bit of red right in that distance there, just brings the eye. I'll pretend I didn't hear that, Jackie. So rude, isn't it? Did you hear what she said? It's not bad. Maybe I could do this as a job. Little does she know there's no money in it. Ha ha ha. Right. And when that's dry, I'll either use ultramarine or black, or a mixture of ultramarine and black for the centres, so it's not so in your face. As I say, you've got the ability to pause, stop, do a bit. I'm the one that's confined by time, unfortunately. This is ultramarine and black, and if you look, some poppies might be facing, some poppies might be going to the side, so you might, oh, some poppies you won't see the centre. Might just be underneath. Might actually use this colour to do some slightly darker tones. Black and blue, so it's not all just light colours. And the poppies can have a little bit of hiding, you know, so you want to be careful that not all of the poppies are on show. Some of them are going to be behind leaves or other stems, and if you can create that, it'll just make everything feel a lot easier and more realistic. I think in the time that we have, we've created quite a nice scene, haven't we? I'm tempted to add slightly darker stippling in the foreground. It just adds a bit more depth, you see. Oh, I don't think there's actually much more I can do to this. Not that will either improve it or not improve it, if you know what I mean. It's very different to the reference because we've changed the way our path works through. And I don't know if I've got more poppies or I need to add more poppies. I can't think, to be honest. If you find your cadmium red isn't standing out, you might need to put a white blob down first, let it dry, then put the red, because depending on the make of your paint, it could be that it's just not opaque enough, and that's okay, because you just get what bits of paint you can afford, really, don't you? Especially if you're not sure you want to get into gouache. So it's understandable that you wouldn't necessarily get the really expensive stuff straight away. Just playing about with different bits of tufts of grass, really, because they're not all going to be exactly the same. I think that will do. I hope you've had a pleasant time with this afternoon, this morning, or whenever you're painting it. It's morning here. And if you do it, do share an image. Send us an email or Facebook or Instagram, however you want. And we love to see what you have created. If you wanted to create greater depth, there is a watercolour hack that I use. Let's get my watercolour tin out. And it involves a bit of chalk, that's all. Bit of white chalk, white pastel. If I want to push that castle back, bit of white pastel on my finger. As long as everything's dry. There we go, look at that. I've given it another half a mile or so. You don't put the pastel directly onto the paper, because that's difficult to work through. But there we go. I've just softened that castle a little bit, and we've got miles now. So thank you so much for your company. It's been lovely to spend 2 hours with you, and I'll post a photograph of this up underneath where I posted the reference image this morning, so you can see how I got on. But it is a fun lesson. It is all about blocking in, and there's very little of the green showing through, but I'm glad I chose the green paper. I think I'd have had a slightly different trouble with blue. Black paper would have worked well, but again, it would work really good for the bushes and things, but for the mid-ground, I think I'd have struggled in the sky. So it was the Terre Verte Clairefontaine paint on paper that I used again today, same as last week. So thanks ever so much. Take care. Have a wonderful week ahead, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye.